All right, awesome. We're going to get started. So, again, welcome to our first nutrition talk. Those of you, everybody on the call, I think knows me, but anybody joining in later, I'm Christine from CrossFit Good Fortune. To start off, I would love for you to drop into the chat what area of performance you are looking to improve. All right, so I'm not seeing anything in the chat, so I'm going to go where everyone's looking for. Just all right, pre and post workout fuel, vegetarian friendly. Okay, pre-workout, perfect. Not being hungry during workouts. All right. We're not going to touch on supplements today, but that is something that we can talk about down the line. I'm hoping that this is going to be the first of a series, hopefully either probably not once a month, but at least once a quarter. So this is great. This will give me some ideas for other topics that we're going to want to look at. All right, awesome. This is great. So endurance during the workout, recovery, increased muscle. Awesome. Sweet. This will be great. So throughout the talk today, if you have questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat and we can answer them along the way or we'll address them at the end. All right. So we'll definitely leave some time for some Q&A. This will probably be like 25 to 30 minutes and then some questions afterwards. So today you're going to get an overview of what impacts our performance, and then we're going to discuss 3 tips to help you with performance. All right, so that is the plan for today. So first things first, Good Fortune, we've partnered with Steph Nutrition to support our clients using a framework that's guided, tested, and proven. We believe something as fundamental as nutrition shouldn't be complicated, which is why we focus on a simple, habit-based approach. Right? We know that helping you become the healthiest version of yourself isn't just about what you eat or going to the gym a few hours a week. You know, I'm sure we've all noticed that when you're stressed or you're tired, your nutrition choices change. So that's why we address a holistic approach focusing on nutrition, stress management, sleep, mindset, support, and lifestyle. All right, so let's dive into today's topic. All right, so fueling for performance is crucial for everyday athletes, right? Proper fueling is going to ensure that you have enough energy to power through your workouts, improve endurance, and it aids in muscle recovery, right? I'm sure we've all started a workout and quickly realized we didn't have enough in the tank to finish, or we've hit the wall and just looked at the clock and wondering why is it moving so slow. All right, so odds are you've experienced that before. So we're going to talk energy, recovery, hydration, and then ultimately the function that fuel plays in the performance of our workouts. You're going to start to see some themes develop. Right, so proper nutrition provides the fuel our body needs to perform at its peak during exercise. Carbohydrates are our primary energy source for muscles, right? So consuming carbs before and during prolonged exercise can help maintain blood sugar levels, delay fatigue, and improve endurance, right? So when we say prolonged exercise, we're going to be thinking around the 90-minute mark, right? But we are going to address shorter, more intense workouts as well. Right, so carbohydrates are going to fall into 2 buckets. We've got simple carbohydrates like fruits, unsweetened applesauce packets, our sports drinks like Fit Aids. Then we've got complex carbs like oatmeal, rice, potatoes, beans, and legumes. Right, so simple carbohydrates are going to digest quicker than complex carbs because they have lower fiber content. Right, so that's going to come into play down the line. So by understanding how carbs are going to fuel our body, we can more effectively tailor our nutrition to match our workout needs, right? So leading to better performance, quicker recovery, and improved outcomes. Right, so we've got energy and now recovery, right? Lace, I think you said recovery. So first up in recovery is going to be protein, right? Protein is going to be essential for building and repairing muscle tissue after workouts, right? Energy replenishment as well as restoring hormone balance. Recovery is also going to help prevent injury and reduce stress, right? It increases motivation and focus in addition to improving our performance and speed, right? Recovery is an essential component of any successful training or performance plan. Prioritizing our recovery is going to be an investment in our long-term health, well-being, and performance, right? So a well-balanced diet with whole foods focus, rest, stress management, and hydration are going to be a few key recovery strategies. All right, so hydration. Hydration is going to play a vital role in fueling for activities. So dehydration can actually negatively impact your workout by up to 20%. Right? So I want to make sure that we have our water and electrolytes. Those are fundamental for maintaining fluid balance as well as preventing dehydration. So we want to drink plenty of fluids throughout the day, especially before, during, and after exercise, because we want to replace those electrolytes that are lost during sweat, particularly during intense or prolonged workouts, right? And especially during the summer when it gets very warm and humid and we sweat very much. So cognitive function, right? Adequate nutrition is going to support our brain function as well, which is going to improve our focus, concentration, and reaction time during exercise. Certain nutrients play a crucial role in the production of neurotransmitters, which are the chemical messengers that transmit signals between brain cells. Right, so adequate intake of those nutrients are going to support optimal brain function and cognitive performance. Right, this can easily be overlooked as far as how fueling impacts our brain function. But if you think about like trying to hit a snatch or something that's technical that you got to think about as you're doing it, it's going to be just as important as strength. All right, so that's why fueling is important, but I want to talk to you about the impact of poor fueling, right? So under eating can lead to fatigue, muscle weakness, and decreased endurance and underperforming, but it is also going to increase your risk of injury. Right. So, according to the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research, athletes who fail to meet their protein needs are at a higher risk of injury, particularly during high intensity training as well as long duration activities. Right. So, protein is going to help repair damaged muscle fibers and build new ones. Right. So, without sufficient protein, muscles weaken over time and make them more prone to injury. Right. So, that's why we talk a lot about protein, right? Insufficient protein is going to hinder muscle repair and growth as well as injury prevention, right? Lack of protein is also going to inhibit your recovery time, right? So that recovery is also essential if there's something coming up like an event or a competition that we have. Dehydration and electrolyte imbalances increase the risk of muscle cramps and other injuries, right? So we want to make sure that we are addressing all of these various different needs. And finally, your mood, energy levels, and overall well-being can be affected by poor nutrition. So it's not just athletic performance, but also just daily life. All right, so we're going to dive into 3 easy tips that you can start to implement and play around with to ensure that you don't fall victim to poor fueling. But I'm going to pause for a second to see if anybody has any questions. I see nods saying that they're good. All right. Again, if you need to, drop them in the chat and we'll be sure to address them. All right. So tip number 1, carb loading. All right. So for everyday athletes who primarily participate in shorter workouts and less intense activities, a balanced meal 2 to 4 hours before exercise is generally going to be sufficient. But for endurance athletes, consuming adequate carbs in the days before a workout or competition are going to help replenish glycogen stores in the muscles, right? So studies have shown that carb loading can significantly improve endurance performance in activities that last longer than 90 minutes, right? So if you're thinking about triathlon, half marathon, even the relay coming up in April, that's going to be a little bit longer. This is something we might want to think about, right? But how do we obtain and store glycogen? All right, so glycogen is the storage form of the carbohydrates that we eat, and it's mostly found in the liver and muscle tissue. The actual amount of glycogen a person has is going to depend on factors like how much you exercise and the amount of skeletal muscle mass that you have. So glycogen stored in the muscles is primarily used to fuel the muscle tissue, while glycogen in the liver is distributed throughout your body when needed. All right, so when you use up those glycogen stores, that's often that fatigue that we experience that we refer to as hitting a wall, right? So how can we avoid that fatigue early, right? This is where carb loading comes into play. Carb loading is a strategy often used by endurance athletes where you increase your carb intake in the days leading up to an event, right? The idea is to saturate your muscles with glycogen so that you can perform at your best during those long events, making that glycogen readily available to you, right? Carb loading involves more carbs in it's about 3 to 7 days before an event while you're reducing exercise intensity. So if you're training for a long event, this would be during your taper week, right? So that 3 to 7 days leading up to that big event. So for our everyday workouts, as previously stated, athletes can benefit from having a meal 2 to 4 hours before workout, which is going to lead us to tip number 2. All right. So if you're not an endurance athlete, or maybe you are and you're regularly, CrossFitting and training for life, pre-workout meals are going to be important. So a balanced meal 2 to 4 hours before exercise is going to help provide sustained energy. Right. This should include a combination of carbohydrates and protein while keeping fats and fiber low. All right, keeping fats and fiber lower is going to avoid digestive issues during exercise. All right, so carbs 1 to 3 hours before a workout can help ensure that you have readily available glycogen for energy. So I hope you're kind of starting to see how these different pieces all go together, right? So some meal examples are oatmeal with banana, protein powder, and nuts, chicken with sweet potato and green beans, or a smoothie with fruit, yogurt, and protein powder. All right, now while some of these do contain fiber, they're relatively low in fats. All right, so fats are going to take the longest to digest of any macronutrient, so we want to keep that light. All right, so those meals will help fuel your muscles while maintaining blood sugar levels and improve endurance and strength. So if you are sleeping 2 to 4 hours before your workout, you're going to, rather than a full pre-workout meal, you're going to want something that's easily digestible and fairly quick. So think like a simple carb, or something like a smoothie, or like an applesauce package, just something to give you quick access to carbs so that you're not going in fasted. Some people do like to work out fasted, but if you don't feel great when you're working out that way, then you might want to play around with some simple carbohydrates that you can have on your way into the gym. So if you get nauseous during your workouts after eating, right, this is something a number of people struggle with. You want to think about something liquid, right? So smoothies, applesauce with protein powder, non-fat Greek yogurt with berries. This is very similar to the question around what if you aren't awake 2 to 4 hours before you're working out. Some of these things might be a good suggestion as well, right? Liquid sources are easier for our body to digest and are more readily available for energy to us. Right. Some additional things to keep in mind if you get nauseous when you're working out, but you want to make sure you're adequately fueled. We want to think about smaller meals and snacks that are easier to digest. You can try eating 90 to like an hour and a half beforehand instead of 30 to 60 minutes. Some of this stuff is going to be personal that you're going to find out through a little bit of trial and error. And avoid dairy, right? If you are susceptible to bloating or digestive discomfort, avoid dairy, spicy foods. And sometimes we want to remember that nausea can sometimes result from dehydration. So drinking water or electrolyte rich drinks are going to be helpful to keep you hydrated if that is the cause of your nausea. All right, so that leads us directly into tip number 3, which is hydration, right? So proper hydration is going to support muscle function, energy production, and endurance. Right? Water also helps regulate our body temperature during exercise. It's going to prevent overheating, which is very important when it gets very hot in the gym during the summer, or we live in a very warm climate in the summertime. So also hydrated cells can better absorb and transport nutrients like glucose and electrolytes for energy. This can help with blood sugar regulation, digestion, nutrient absorption, and increased recovery. right? So when you're considering performance and recovery, even a mild dehydration of 1 to 2% body weight can impair strength, endurance, cognitive function, can also lead to muscle cramps, dizziness, and fatigue, right? So water is important. So, and along those lines, we want to think about alcohol, right? So alcohol is a diuretic, which can cause your body to lose more fluids than it takes in, leading to dehydration. Right. So you want to drink water before, during, and after consuming alcohol to counteract its hydrating effects. Also, if you're drinking alcohol and know that you're going to be working out the next day or involved in an endurance event, we also want to make sure that we're replenishing our electrolytes to restore balance and prevent those muscle cramps and fatigue, right? So being proactive about hydration can minimize the negative impact alcohol has on our body and make us feel better the next day, right? So it says avoid alcohol. That's a choice based off of what you want to do, right? But we want to definitely make sure that we stay hydrated and balance those electrolytes. So if you're thinking about your pre-workout meal, we have the athlete plate method. So this looks a little bit different than the plate method that we've talked about during our nutrition challenge, right? During the nutrition challenge, that everyday plate is half non-starchy carbs, quarter protein, quarter starchy carbs. The athlete plate method is going to be a little bit different, where it's going to be a third of each of those, right? So a third of your plate is going to be non-starchy veggies, a third of your plate lean protein, and a third of your plate starchy carbs, being mindful of healthy fats, right? So also, we want to keep in mind that experimenting and finding the strategy that works best for you is going to be really important, right? It's like doing a workout. Everybody's workout's a little bit different based on where they're coming from and what their goals are, right? So you can always talk to Ian and I if you have specific questions, or you can consult a registered dietitian for something more personalized, right? So that plate method, right? Third non-starchy veggies, third lean protein, third starchy carbs, right? But eating mostly whole foods is also going to benefit you for getting more vitamins, minerals, and fiber to improve overall energy and recovery. So before we touch on some frequently asked questions and wrap up, here are a few things to know, right? Fueling for performance does take some attention to detail and some timing. But once you have nailed down the basics, you'll have a solid foundation to enhance your performance. So we want to keep these things in mind. Don't leave out essential carbohydrates, right? That is our fuel. Plan your pre-workout meals, experiment a little bit with timing and with the types of foods that you're eating to see what works best for you. Hydration is key, right? And when in doubt, you can use the plate method to fuel up with that pre-workout meal. All right, so a couple of other things, right? How does sleep affect our performance? Right? Sleep plays a big role in many aspects of our health and wellness, right? When we're asleep, our body, including our brain, yes, even our brain, right? Most of us, some of us that have brains that run overtime, this is where we are at rest, right? This allows for increased blood flow and nutrients to muscle tissue for repair and growth. Sleep also impacts our muscle recovery, energy levels, cognitive function, as well as our mental resilience, right? So those tough workouts that we need that mental toughness, if we're well rested, we're going to have a lot more to give, right? So optimal recovery, we want to aim for 7 to 9 hours of sleep daily. So how do I know if I'm eating enough, right? This is where we need to listen to our body, right? So if you're feeling fatigued, weak, unable to perform at your usual level, it might be a sign that your fueling strategy needs some adjustment, or maybe one of the other areas that we've talked about, right? So here are some things you might see: tiredness and fatigue during your workouts, delayed muscle recovery, right? So maybe you're more sore and for longer than usual. You're craving sugary or high carb foods after workouts, trouble sleeping, or poor quality rest, right? Some of these things are going to be a sign that you might want to look at whether or not you're eating enough day to day. All right, so we can, so obviously Ian and I, you can ask us any questions that you have in regards to that. So just a couple of notes about our nutrition program specifically, just some of you that haven't participated in the challenge. So our core principles focus on whole foods first, right? So eat meat and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, no sugar. No sugar means limited added sugar, right? We just want to minimize that. So we want to focus on a balance of macronutrients, getting protein, carbs, and a healthy fats at all of our meals and snacks, and then limiting the amount of processed carbohydrates and sugars that we get. All right. These are principles that with HSN has helped over 45,000 of their clients worldwide improve their health, increase their performance, and reach their health and wellness goals. It's a big reason that we have partnered with them. This is something that has been tried and true. Right. So at the end of the day, we also know that having support and accountability is going to be the key to success. Right. So if you are interested in our nutrition coaching program, I'm going to drop the link to our wait list so that you have access to that. You can fill that out and we will get in touch with you. We are finishing up our group challenge this weekend, and then we'll be open for individual coaching clients. Right. So if that is something that is of interest to you, feel free to reach out, fill out, send us a note, or fill out the link. So as we wrap up, I want you to take a minute or two and reflect. Let me know what stood out to you. What is a tip that you're going to try out or something that you learned today that was of interest to you? And then we'll also take questions. And I will learn to talk slower. Ian's telling me it might be the wrong link. Yes, yes, the athlete plate method is great. And Sarah, I can, you had mentioned vegetarian specific options. I can share with you some of the plant-based resources that I shared with Cheryl and my mom earlier today. And aside from the chat, if any of you are comfortable enough and want to come off mute and ask your questions, you can do that as well. Carby snack before morning workouts. Yes. So yogurt, banana, smoothie, yogurt and granola. I like a yogurt parfait. You can also mix in some protein with that yogurt as well. If you are eating shortly before you go into the gym, if it's like a 7 a.m. or something like that, I would just keep it small. Yes, we are all very short on protein most of the time. Protein. So one of the things that we've actively worked on with some of our challenge clients is really thinking about protein first at our meals and snacks. So do you have to get protein directly after working out? Um, Not necessarily. It doesn't have to be like right when you finish working out. It can be within like an hour or 90 minutes after you've worked out. A lot of times, even after a post-workout, getting a balanced meal after you work out is a good way to get that protein in as well. A quick protein shake is also good if you're not going to be eating for a while afterwards. I love that we have questions. It's great. Anything else? I'm going to stop the recording if I can figure that out. Thank you for attending our nutrition talk, whether it was virtually live or afterwards via our YouTube channel. Thanks so much for your attendance. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to us at CrossFitGoodFortune.com and follow our channel for more information.